If you click this video to find out if my genius plan has fallen apart already, let me reward you with a quick answer just for blessing me with the view. Yes. Yes, it has. See, I had this plan where month one I was going to complete the core gameplay loop. That way everything I did after was just adding to or repeating the loop. Month one was supposed to be all about adding functionality, just getting everything to work. No design, just big shapes, blocky rooms, no color. Month two was going to be all about design though, just bringing life to this world. I was going to paint the walls, use all the assets I bought to decorate and fill the room with guests. So why didn't this work? There's one obvious thing that the writer in me would have never let happen, but the newly born game maker in me just didn't think of. Let's walk through what I did first. I gathered references from our hotel. I started off with things like what was relaxing and cozy to me. I found things that I love, places that I would probably stay forever if given the chance, and these are the references that just kind of brought me peace. But, and I'm so happy for this, I wrote down a bit of what I was looking for before I started gathering references. I haven't made anything like a game Bible or anything like that. I'm sure they're useful in larger projects, especially when working with a team, but I also know how easy it is to get trapped in the planning phase and never get to the actually doing stage, so I just opted out of that. I did, however, make a small blurb of what I wanted my hotel to feel like. And that's when I noticed that while the hotel is beautiful and comfy and cozy, it was missing a few things. Mainly the things at the bottom of this list, that feeling of wonder and otherworldliness, that feeling that anything could happen, that feeling that something in this hotel is just a little bit off. So I took another stab at gathering references, something that would add a splash of color and just add a little bit of wonder to this scene. That's when I came across Moroccan architecture for these hotels, and good lord, these places are beautiful. Now, these things on their own don't entirely add a sense of wonder to the world, but depending on where they are in the world, they might. These places in Morocco, for example, would be normal. A place like this in Ohio, now that would be a bit unnatural and add a sense of wonder. So with those things in mind, I went to start experimenting with my scenes. When you're working, you don't realize how much of what you're rushing through is half-baked. At this point, I thought I was ready to start designing, but I was wrong. I realized pretty quickly that half the scenes that I had weren't completely finished. They were definitely not ready to have materials thrown on them, let alone start adding props into the world. So I spent some time doing that and getting things organized. And then I went to start experimenting with patterns and applying materials to the things that I had. By this point, I thought I was off to a good start. I thought this shit is going so well, I'm gonna be done with this rough draft in no time. At least until I got ready to design the rooms, and that's when my whole plan just fell apart. See, the writer in me would never get so detailed as to try to design a space before I knew more about the story or the characters that were going to go into the story. At least not for the character-driven work that I'm trying to create. But when trying to make my first game, the software engineer part of my brain took over and thought of this more from a project management point of view instead of from a writer's point of view. I had my list of tasks, the order that I was going to do them in, and just completely lost track of the soul of this place, the characters. The rooms in this hotel are long-term rentals, so inside the room there's going to be a lot of objects and props that speak to the character that lives there, and it's impossible to design those sorts of things when you don't have the characters that live in these rooms yet. I ran into that same problem with these two rooms back here. These are the spaces that a lot of the social scenes are going to take place with the characters. Think things like persona and social links. I don't have much space to make this happen if I want to keep the scope of my game small, so the spaces that I do have, I need to make versatile and serve multiple purposes, so I really need to think this through. But how do I know what type of setting makes the most sense for multiple characters to interact with if I don't know some of these scenarios that the characters are going to be placed in? I've been approaching this whole game so far with my software engineer hat on, and I need to take a step back and just think of this from a writer's point of view, because first and foremost, this game is going to be entirely about character and story. That's my whole point for making this game. I know the main story beats, which is why it's easy for me to create some of this hotel. But as far as all this side content with the guests, I guess I've just been focusing mostly on the parts that I don't know how to do first. Mainly all the game development stuff. I wanted to take care of the hard things before I focused on the parts that I could probably do with my eyes closed. I guess I just kind of had this fear that I'm going to do all the work up front of creating this amazing story and then try to actually implement it in game form and realize that I'm just in over my head. So I've been doing everything that I can to get these harder parts out of the way first. But yeah, that's what I've been up to these past couple weeks. Thanks for following me on this journey if you made it this far. And if you've enjoyed what you've been seeing, then just, no, I'm not even gonna say it. You know what to do.